As day one of the NFL draft draws closer, the New England Patriots continue to keep their options open at quarterback. But have they neglected one prospect a little too long? Stick around. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful, and thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. Also, thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. Remember, Locked On Patriots is not only a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, but we are also free and available on all platforms, so make sure to smash that subscribe button and download and follow Locked On Patriots wherever you get your podcasts to ensure that you're getting the latest episode as soon as it's available. I'm your host, Mike Debate, and I cover your New England Patriots for Patriots Country of Sports Illustrated, so reach out to me and let me know what's on your mind on X, formerly known as the Bird app, at MDABATE NFL. And while you're out there showing some social media love to Locked On Patriots, be sure to give us a follow there as well at LO_Patriots. And of course, Pats fans, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And Pats fans, even though your New England Patriots are heavily rumored to be selecting a quarterback with the number 3 overall selection, Patriots may be adding a bit of spice to their proverbial draft stew in the coming days and weeks. Patriots hosting Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. on a top 30 visit on Tuesday. And per NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, he had dinner with the Patriots leadership on Monday, visiting Gillette Stadium on Tuesday, and according to Ian's words, the Patriots continue to do all of the homework on all of the quarterback prospects. But have the Patriots neglected Penix a little too long? Well, here today to answer that question and to lend his reason, wisdom, and counsel the way only he can is my good friend, a columnist extraordinaire, and excellent Pats coverage for PatsFans.com, as well as being the co-host of another amazing Patriots podcast, a great listen, Patriots 4th and 2, alongside the great Derek Havens. He is my Patriots paisan, my good buddy Steve Balestrieri. Steve, welcome back to Locked On Patriots this week. Always a lot to cover here, buddy.
Yeah, there's never a dull moment, as we say all the time. And with Michael Penix coming in today for the meeting with the team, I think they're checking all their blocks, aren't they? So, I think it's interesting that they're bringing him in at this point, because according to, everyone that we know, they haven't had much contact with him. So now they're kind of checking that block, and, it kind of opens up the possibility that they could be possibly trading back and looking at Penix as one of those second-tier quarterbacks.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the trade and that as being a potential scenario, because I think we can both agree it's improbable that the Patriots would take him with the number 3 overall selection. Most of the draft boards have him going late first round. I've even seen some that still continue to project him as a day 2. I don't think that's happening, folks. I think he had a very good throwing session at his pro day, really showed up at the combine and put that pedestrian performance at the Senior Bowl behind him, and I think he's a solid day 1 pick, and I don't see him going beyond that. But at the same time, we're looking at the guys that the Patriots have already brought in here to Foxborough for visits. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, I don't think there's any question those 2 guys are probably going 2 and 3, depending on what Washington wants to do. J.J. McCarthy, a lot of people are saying he has the potential to move up to that top 5, maybe top 3. I'm not seeing that, but I don't think he goes any lower than top 7 at this point. So JJ is going to be hanging around at the top. But Penix is not someone that's been at the top of a lot of draft boards when it comes to this year's class. And I think it's interesting that he doesn't, because when you look at him as a logistical prospect, He checks all the boxes, Steve. Definitely well-sized, 6'2", 216 pounds, so he's definitely sized for the position. Measured in with 10.5-inch hands. That's top 10 all-time in the NFL Combine measuring scale, folks. So that's something that is definitely in his favor. He ran a 4.45 time at the 40. So he's checking all of the physical boxes that you need. Anybody worried about his physical stature? Anybody worried about lingering health problems? We know he had the ACL tears during his time as an Indiana Hoosier. That seems to be behind him. 2 separate medical examinations have cleared him from that. So he appears to have moved on. Even the slight shoulder injury that he had last season appears to be a thing of the past, because he did have some impressive throws throughout this pre-draft cycle. But in a lot of ways, people are still, I think, a little bit concerned about his ability to be ready at the pro level. Steve, you always take a reasonable approach to this when you watch Michael Penix on the field, not just in his workouts, but most importantly in game film. Is there anything that stands out to you that really you can point to and say, yeah, that's why this guy's fallen a lot on draft boards?
I think mostly it's injury concern with him, because he had the two big injuries. And I think that's what kind of scared off a lot of people from him, strictly because, hey, is this guy going to be injury prone? But, the last couple of years, that's been kind of behind him. When I look at his game, I think that, hey, I think he's a really good football player. And I think he is pro ready. I think he is. I just don't think he's at the level of those other couple of guys that we've been talking about. I think number 3 would be a little too rich for him. So, it makes sense if the Patriots are considering sliding back some, that they bring the guy in, double check, what his football IQ is, throw some stuff at him, and just see what makes him tick. So I think it's a good move. It doesn't necessarily mean that, yes, they're going all in on trading back. I think they're just, doing their due diligence. And who knows? It could just be one of those old Belichick things where they know they'll face this guy somewhere down the road, and they'll see what his strengths and weaknesses are.
Look, the knock on Penix largely, and I think you hit the nail right on the head, Steve, is his injuries. You see the ACL tears. You see 2 other seasons that were cut short by injury while he was at Indiana. So a lot of health concerns there. Again, his examinations checked out very well at the NFL Combine, so putting that behind him. I think some of the second half swoon that we hear about a lot when it comes to Michael Penix last season was due to that shoulder injury that he had. And I think it prevented him from being as accurate as he needed to be. And he had to adjust his footwork a little bit to compensate for maybe a little bit of a lack of velocity. I'm not seeing that in the workouts that he's putting out there right now, even though technically he didn't perform as well as some expected him to at the Senior Bowl. He put a lot of that to rest at the Combine and in his pro day, throwing the ball very well, completing passes downfield, and being very impressive. He still threw for 4,903 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions last season. So for everybody that wants to say it was a second half swoon, that performance put the Huskies in the national championship game against the Michigan Wolverines. So take that for what you will. Even a less than par Michael Penix was still very good and still head and shoulders above a lot of the competition that he had. But, Steve, I think it begs the question now when you look at Penix and you look at the Patriots bringing him in for a visit, if it's not recon and they are interested, does this tip their hands either way on how they may feel about Drake May or Jaden Daniels? If Washington selects the quarterback they wanted, how much more likely now with Penix coming in and being scouted, do you think it makes the Patriots to say, yeah, we're willing to listen to a deal that's going to move us down? We'll take Penix, we'll take the extra picks, and we'll build around him. Does this now all of a sudden become a more probable scenario?
I don't think it's more probable, but like I said, I mean, I don't think so. I think they're just planning for contingencies. And as you said, if Washington at number 2 takes the guy they really want, be it either Drake May or Jaden Daniels, then maybe they would consider trading back if they didn't care for the one that was left. I don't know. I think if they took either one of those guys, I think they'd be in really good shape. However, if somebody comes at them with, a lot of people have been mentioning Minnesota, but I think if a lot of people come or somebody comes at them with three first-round draft picks, then maybe they would be a little apt to think about that trade a little more. I would hope not. I really do hope that they stick at 3. But, Penix, like you said, his numbers were off the chart last year. And, he's got those intangibles, the toughness, physical and mental resilience, right?
Right.
For him to come back from those 2 major injuries and then have the year he had, I think that shows a lot about him, what kind of a player he is. He took him to the national championship game. They just came up short against Michigan, which they were a powerhouse this year. So, there's a lot to like about Penix. I just, I'm stuck on those other 2 guys. And I think, either one of them would be the best way for them to go. But does it mean that they don't like Penix more?
True. I think you can feel a lot of Patriots fans watching this and listening to this right now and nodding their heads in agreement with you, Steve. I do think that most Patriots fans would agree if you're going to go quarterback, you do it at number 3 because either Jaden Daniels or Drake May give you an opportunity to win and win now. But if the New England Patriots decide that trading down is in their best interest and maximizing and filling other big needs on this roster, which we're going to get into in just a moment, folks, if Michael Penix is the guy that they're going to select with maybe the lesser of a first-round pick, not the number 3, but a pick that they acquire, maybe 11 from the Minnesota Vikings, like you said, that's still definitely a possibility. There are elements of his game that make a lot of sense in New England, especially because this is a team that's definitely in need of a pure passing quarterback. There's no question about that, Steve. They need a guy that can direct a vertical offense. And Michael Penix, he's got a great deal of arm talent, tremendous on-field savvy. You hear a lot about this kid's football IQ, but this is where I think he's the strongest fit in New England. Penix is someone who's really operating at optimal level when he's got a solid running game around him. And I think that makes him a very good fit in Alex Van Pelt's offense. Alex Van Pelt loves to run an offense that's predicated on a strong running game to open up play action and get those deep shots downfield. Penix may be the best fit in this class of being able to do that. I love May's fit, don't get me wrong, folks. But again, I think it comes back to Penix's football IQ and maybe a little bit more temperance in that situation. Folks, if the Patriots do end up with Michael Penix under center, I think there are reasons to be excited for this team. So I think we can agree on one thing, my friend. Regardless of who is calling signals under center this year, Patriots have more work to do than just a quarterback. They need to fill a lot of other holes, especially on this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. But when it all comes down to it, the quarterback is still the most important position in the NFL, and you got to have that guy. There's been teams that have won with lesser quarterbacks. A couple of teams won multiple Super Bowls with lesser quarterback, but that's the outlier. That's not the norm. You got to have that guy. You got to have that Patrick Mahomes type. Not saying they need a Patrick Mahomes, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. That guy that can carry a team on his back. Tom Brady, absolutely. Patrick Mahomes. Those type of guys that have ruled the NFL for so long. That's the kind of guy you need. And if they believe it's Penix, more power to them. We don't know how they feel about any of the top 3. They raved about all of them at times, but there's smoke screens and there's smoke screens, and we're in we're in the pinnacle of smokescreen season right now.
Yeah. 'Tis the season for deception in the NFL when it comes to draft prospects, and we are knee deep in that season right now, folks. Assuming the Patriots do go quarterback at number 3, and I'm in full agreement with Steve here, I think that's exactly what the Patriots should do. We are still in agreement, my friend, that there are other holes on this roster that need to be filled. The two that are involved in the most heated debates here amongst Patriots fans is whether or not that position is offensive lineman, specifically the tackle position, or wide receiver. Steve and I are going to delve into that question in just a moment and give our arguments on which need is bigger for the Patriots. Is it a pass-catching weapon, or is it a foundational building block along that offensive line? This and more, folks, when we continue right here on the Locked On Patriots podcast, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Locked On listeners, sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say how I'm really feeling about something, and you might even be thinking about the same thing this week. With the NFL draft just days away, I think all of us Patriots fans are hoping that the Patriots put themselves back on the path to success. Does that mean taking the big chance and drafting a future franchise quarterback, or playing it safe and building a solid infrastructure? Life can present the same types of questions, and that's why therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Pats fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots, and we hope you enjoyed our new entrance music here on Locked On Patriots. A tip of the cap to the Locked On visual team that does a great job putting these together. And for those of you missing the mock drafts, I've got good news for you. Our good buddy Murph getting a little bit of a hard drive rebuild, but he will be back here this week, and we will be breaking down all of your great mock drafts. So definitely stay locked into Locked On Patriots, because mock draft analysis and your great mock drafts will continue to take center stage here on Locked On Patriots. But today we are honored and humbled. We are honored and grateful, my friend, that my good friend and Patriots paisan, Steve Balestrieri of PatsFans.com, is joining us. Steve, we talked about Michael Penix's visit and what it means for the Patriots' pursuit of a quarterback here in the upcoming draft. But we're in agreement that if the Patriots do go quarterback at number 3, they still have multiple needs on this team. One of the great debates, no relation, among the Patriots fan base right now, Steve, is whether or not their secondary need behind quarterback is at offensive line or is at wide receiver. Now, our good buddy Murph has graced our airwaves several times and has said that he believes offensive line is their greatest need, even over quarterback at this point. But we're in agreement that the Pats should still go quarterback at number 3. My question to you, my friend, is after that selection is made and the Patriots are evaluating their options, are they smart to trade up, trade down, stay pat at number 34 in the second round? What direction should they be going in? Is it an offensive tackle? Is it a wide receiver? Or is it a position we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, I think obviously the offensive line and the wide receiver positions were both weak last year. It's going to be interesting to see how they, attack this. I think that at 34, if somebody in either position has slid down the board a little bit, that they didn't believe would be there, I think they could go either way. I know that's kind of sitting on the fence a little bit, but I really think that, I think it'll depend on how the board plays out. I know there's a lot of really good wide receivers in this draft. I think you could find a good one all the way into the 4th round, but there's also a lot of really good tackles in this draft. Now, I'm sure we're going to see those guys start rolling off the board in the first round. But, I think that I would go tackle, but in my last mock draft that I did, a wide receiver that I did not believe would be there at 34 happened to be sitting there. So I was like, he's too good to pass up. So I'm going to take him. But I think a tackle would be better served, because then, you're getting all your pieces around your new quarterback. And, you have Michael Onwenu. Now you have this guy that they'll draft coming in. But I firmly believe that if one of these really good wide receivers are there, like Leggett or Mitchell, I think they'd be really well served by picking that guy.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. It's going to depend on how the board looks. It's going to depend on what the Patriots have evaluated these players. I'm sure they've put draft grades on these guys and understand where they need to be picked and what their team needs are. But ultimately, I think they'll go for the best player available at either position. I'd be surprised if the Patriots, if they stick with the number 34 pick, go anywhere else but offensive line or receiver. I think those are the two options they're looking at closest, because they are the two biggest needs on this team beyond quarterback. You look at the offensive line, Steve, especially the tackle position. Not only are they missing Trent Brown on the left side, they don't have someone on the roster right now that can fill that void. I know Chuck Okorafor is someone that the Patriots are optimistic about, and they should be. I think he provides a good amount of veteran presence, but he's only played right tackle in 6 NFL seasons. So when you look at his potential to maybe move over to the right, if they wanted to kick Onwenu back in and draft a left tackle, I think that's a scary proposition. I think if the Patriots are going to go offensive line early, they're going to go for someone that is more adept at being able to play the tackle position. That's a huge need for the Pats, because we've said several times, Steve, you need a solid foundation. You need a solid building block, especially protecting a quarterback, a young quarterback's blind side. That's, I think, of ultimate importance. But I've kind of come around on the need for receivers, because I understand that the fan base has been so starved for receivers for quite some time. It almost feels like the majority of the Patriots fan base would love to see either Jaden Daniels or Drake May at number 3, and then fill out the rest of the draft card with receivers. Just pack the team with receivers, get as many as you can. We need weapons. That's the common thread that you see in a lot of Patriots fans. Again, virtue lies in the middle. I mean, packing the draft with wide receivers is not the way to go either, folks. But the Patriots have had that dearth of a perimeter receiver, and I don't think that their interest in this position should be that surprising when you look at what they had to go through last year. Kendrick Bourne, Juju Smith-Schuster suffering season-ending injuries. At the time that Bourne went down, he was leading the team, 37 catches for 406 yards and 4 touchdowns. You need more productivity out of that position. Now, that's no knock to Kendrick, folks, at all. His productivity was limited by exiting prematurely with an injury, and there's no question about that. But they needed more than what they got. Devontae Parker was not the guy they believed he was in terms of being able to be that X-receiver. He's now in Philadelphia. Jalen Reagor, Tyquan Thornton, a lot of speed, a lot of potential. They've yet to build into it. And then you've got Demario Douglas, who I think is the most solid prospect in terms of wide receivers on this team right now at the slot. This kid's going to be special, but you need that X-weapon on the outside along the boundary that's going to be able to come in and balance this offense. Elliott Wolf expressed a desire to weaponize this offense last month when he spoke to Patriots media. I think there's no better way to do it than early on in the draft. So if the Patriots decide that receiver is their biggest dearth and they have the ability to upgrade that position at 34 or earlier, it wouldn't surprise me to see them go in that direction. I think there's a little more momentum there right now than maybe I believe there was early on in this draft.
I think that's a great point. I mean, there's so many different ways this can play out. And like you said, it's all going to be dependent on how the board falls. Mm-hmm. And, there's 31 other teams involved. Somebody is going to fall in love with somebody who's not on everyone's draft board, at the top. And there's always a player that, for whatever reason, starts to slide, and then everyone starts avoiding that particular player. And I think that's going to play out in some shape or form. This draft is going to be crazy. I think, this first round on next Thursday night, I think there's going to be so many twists and turns in this, and everyone's draft projection for the first round will be shot by number 12.
It's true. Draft projections can be busted a lot easier than NCAA tournament brackets. I've got all this pre-draft work and all of this, analysis on where these guys are going to go. Folks, you never really know until the draft begins where the teams are going to go and what decisions they're going to make. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what the Patriots are going to do. But ultimately, you look at this offensive tackle class, Steve, and it is an extremely deep class. That's why you're seeing talents, guys that could immediately come in and be plug and play talents at the position. Guys like Jordan Morgan and guys like Amarius Mims and Patrick Paul of Houston, even Tyler Guyton, who I think is going to be a first rounder. Some projections and some mock drafts, you see him take an early second round. The Patriots can't lay off talent like this, folks. So if they do go in the tackle direction, don't be angry at this team. That is just as big, in my opinion, almost as big of a need as needing to weaponize the offense. I think an argument can be made either way. Maybe Steve and I are kind of teetering on the fence a little bit, but I think they're equally as important. And this is a deep draft class for both of these positions. So Patriots have some interesting decisions to make when it comes to your New England Patriots and their draft haul and their future moving on in the new era under Gerard Mayo. Steve, we can talk all we want to about day one and day two, the draft being the Patriots' opportunity to weaponize the offense, build an offensive line, fill the holes they have on this roster. But some of the best work this team has done typically has come in the later rounds, fifth rounds and later. As we take a look, folks, at potential late day two and all of day three prospects, who's caught Steve's sharp eye? Who is a potential diamond in the rough or two that the Patriots may have their eyes on in the later rounds? We're going to give our thoughts on potential late round diamonds in the rough when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast wraps up right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On listeners, we've all been there. You want tickets to watch your favorite team play at Fenway, but you're not quite sure how to get the best seats at the best prices. Well, Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And it's not just Major League Baseball, folks. With their priority last-minute deals, Game Time can help you save up to 60% off by buying last minute for all kinds of sports, concerts, comedy, and theater, all coming to your area. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Patriots fans, thank you once again for joining us here today on Locked On Patriots, spending part of your Tuesday listening to me and my good buddy, my Patriots paisan, Steve Balestrieri, talk some Patriots football. And Steve, we've already talked about Michael Penix in the quarterback position. We've gone back and forth on what's the bigger need for the Patriots, offensive line or wide receiver, and kind of reached a stalemate on that. But one thing that's always intriguing about this time of year for the Patriots is their ability to find late round talent. They did it last year in Demario Douglas, who really I think was one of the steals of the draft, and I think he's only going to get better. This kid led the team with 561 receiving yards last year. Obviously, you want more out of your leading receiver, but for a rookie slot prospect, I think that was a very good showing. As you look to this draft and the Patriots draft boards, late day 2, early 3 picks, who do you have your eye on that could be potential diamonds in the rough for the New England Patriots this season?
Well, it's a wide receiver / running back from Texas A&M, Anais Smith. This kid is electric. I love watching his game. He's kind of one of those Swiss Army knife gadget type guys. You know, he can influence the game by catching the ball. He can influence the game by running the ball. He's an electric returner. Watching him return kicks last year was, that wow factor. I mean, he runs smooth routes. He's got excellent hands, and he has tremendous ability to create yak. So he's kind of in the same boat as Demario Douglas. He's not the biggest guy. He's like 5'9", 190. But boy, you talk about a guy in the later rounds. I'm not talking about bringing this guy in to be the X now, folks. This is a later round guy, a guy that you can plug and play in all different phases of your offense and your special teams. And I just, I think he's got a really good football IQ because he has a knack for finding the open spot, the sweet spot in the zones, excuse me. I just think he's going to be an interesting guy, and I would love to see the Patriots pick him up maybe 5th or 6th round.
Anais Smith, I think, is someone that pops up on a lot of Patriots mock drafts, whether it be fan-submitted mock drafts or whether it be pundit-submitted mock drafts. A lot of our colleagues in the media, Steve, choosing him as someone who could come in and make a late-round impact here in New England. So I like that choice, and I think that's a good one. I'm going to actually go the offensive line route. We talked about wide receiver versus offensive line in the last segment. In terms of offense, because we'll get to defense in just a moment, folks, the guy that I keep coming back to is Mason McCormick, a guard out of South Dakota State. Now, a couple of weeks ago here on Locked On Patriots, I provided my first mock draft, but McCormick is someone that reminds me an awful lot of Cole Strange at the guard position. This is a kid that plays with a mean streak, and I think in a lot of ways, because he reminds me of Cole Strange, who also played with a mean streak when he was over at Chattanooga, this could be an option for the Pats if they decide that Strange maybe wasn't everything they wanted him to be. I think the Pats have shown enough over the last couple of seasons where they're not afraid to cut bait with a first-round pick that just did not pan out. That's why Mac Jones is now in Jacksonville, folks. So this regime is not going to be so willing to hang on to a guy and try to squeeze everything you can out of him on a rookie deal. If Cole Strange doesn't perform at a high level this year, would not surprise me to see him placed on the trade block. And this is a kid that could come in and play that guard position, because if Van Pelt is looking to utilize pulling guards in select run packages, that's what this kid did best at South Dakota State. There are obviously issues, folks, with inconsistency with his footwork, a little bit with run blocking and in pass protection. He's a project, but again, someone that plays the position with that type of attitude you need out of an offensive lineman, especially at the guard position. So if you're looking for someone that could come in, maybe make a round 5, round 6, I've even seen him go as low as round 7 in some projections. If he's sitting out there and the Patriots have a need, it'd be tough for me to lay off of him. I like Mason McCormick, and I think he could be a late round diamond in the rough for the Pats offensively. Steve, will flip it over now. We're going to take a look into the defensive position. Your diamond in the rough on defense, folks. In your area of expertise, my friend, who catches your sharp eye?
For a late round, like 6th, 7th rounder, I like Gabe Hall, defensive lineman out of Baylor. I know he's very tall. He's 6'6", but he's only like 294, 295 pounds. But I just think, for a guy of his size and length, he's a pretty good pass rusher from the interior, and he's had some production there. He's played. Obviously, he's played against some tough competition. I just I like he already has some good pass rush moves, especially I've seen on the tape several times where he does that the old Dwight Freeney. I'm losing my train of thought here. That the spin move, the old Dwight Freeney spin move. He has pretty decent flexibility for a guy of his size and length. He's got good footwork. He's pretty agile. He's light on his feet for a big man. So, again, he's not going to be a day one starter. He's more of a project. But, I when I look at him, I was like, there's enough there that, you're not expecting a guy to be an all-pro when you draft him in the 6th or 7th round. But I think the opportunity will be there for him to work his way into the roster. And, with some seasoning and coaching, I think this is going to be a guy that could possibly be an impact player, at least in a sub-package role.
Very good point. I definitely love Gabe, and I think that you make a good point about not only an exciting spin move and what he can bring to that defense, but also his ability to assimilate into a front seven that is pretty well established. You want guys that can come in and not necessarily be plug-and-play starters, not at this level in the draft, folks, but guys that can come in, give you good, solid minutes, and be able to assimilate well into what Gerard Mayo and DeMarcus Covington and that new coaching staff are going to be looking for in this defense. So excellent choice on Gabe. I love it, and I think Patriots fans will too. Steve, we're going to cover all bases today because I'm going to turn to the secondary, and I'm going to talk about a guy the Patriots actually brought in recently on Monday for a top 30 visit, Mississippi State's DeCamerion Richardson. This kid projects as a day 3 selection, but I think he's got talent beyond that at the cornerback position. Well-sized, 6'2", 188 pounds. Patriots love these guys that can come in, sizable corners that can play well along the boundary. And look, that's what this kid's done. 1,770 career snaps, primarily all lined up along the perimeter. He had 177 tackles last season, 10 pass breakups, a sack, and a fumble recovery. And he led all cornerbacks in the SEC in tackles as both a junior and a senior. So the last couple of seasons, this kid is in and around the ball. He's not an interception machine, but the fact that he does have a nose for the football and those that are carrying it does speak well for his ability to maybe round into that role in the NFL at the pro level. And I think he'd look pretty nice alongside someone like a Christian Gonzalez that really could be a solid option. Talk about speed. This kid has got it. Ran the 40-yard dash in 4.34 seconds. I think there's a lot to like with this kid. It didn't surprise me to see him brought in for a top 30 visit. He's also, folks, played 354 snaps on various special teams units. I think if Bill Belichick is still sitting in the main chair, I think you pencil this kid in and say, this is almost a slam dunk, depending on the way the board bounces. But this kid has got a Belichickian pick all over him. I think Gerard Mayo may be looking at this kid and saying, you know what, there's something there. I know secondary coaches like Mike Pellegrino and even maybe to a lesser degree, Brian Belichick are probably looking at this kid and saying, yeah, he could be a good, solid Patriot. I like the way he would assimilate into this defensive backfield.
Yeah, and the Patriots have had good success with taking guys late in the draft, defensive backs. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, they've found some, as you say, diamonds in the rough, late rounds, even undrafted guys who play in the secondary. So, I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility at all. I think he'd be an excellent pick as well.
Folks, it's always interesting and always fun to share the microphone with my good buddy Steve Balestrieri here on Locked On Patriots. Always delivers the wisdom and counsel and reason the way only he can. Thank you so much, my friend, for lending all of that today to Locked On Patriots as you do each and every week. And before I let you go, Bud, please let everyone know, for any of our first timers, most importantly for all of our everydayers out there, not only where they can reach you and interact with you, but what you got cooking in the Balestrieri kitchen between now and next week, when we get ready to cover the NFL draft in earnest, and we'll only be hours away at that point. Bud.
Yeah, with the draft coming up, obviously that's going to be the big focus. You can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I write for PatsFans.com. Derek Havens and I will be doing a show tomorrow. And tonight I'll be on the radio in the Patriot-loving land of Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'll be on terrestrial radio with a good friend of mine talking the draft in Pittsburgh, which is always a fun thing. So, we're going to be keeping busy. I think, Derek and I aren't going to do our traditional mock draft first round this week. I think we're going to put it next week, just before the draft, and see how it all plays out.
Absolutely, folks. And once again, whenever Steve puts voice to microphone or pen to paper, appointment reading, appointment listening, and for those of you that may be listening that are in the Pittsburgh area, we do, believe it or not, have some Patriots fans in that area. Check out Steve on terrestrial radio. You will not regret it. It's always a fun listen, and we thank him each and every time he joins us here on Locked On Patriots. And folks, we continue to thank you each and every day here on Locked On Patriots for making us a part of your daily Patriots coverage. A well-deserved tip of the cap to all of you everydayers that continue to make Locked On Patriots your daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. On behalf of my good friend Steve Balestrieri, I'm Mike Debate, reminding you all to stay safe and to stay well, and to be the change you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow on Locked On Patriots.